Welcome back to CHGO Bears After Dark. Having a nice Monday evening. I'm back in my garage. It's raining, but I was on the golf course early today, Corey. And
Would you hit it?
Yeah. So, let me start. I'll start with the good. The front nine. I did my best on the front on 9 holes I ever did. I shot a 43 on the front 9. I've never shot that well on 9 holes ever. So I was trying to break 90. Then I ended up shooting 92. So on the back 9, I shot whatever I choked. I choked is the end of the story because I wanted to break 90 and I ended up shooting a 92, but a 43 and a 49 on the front and then the back. So
okay, there's a couple of questions I gotta ask you. Okay, what tees were you playing from?
Well, we weren't playing from the furthest back, the second furthest. We were playing from the second furthest back, and that was because a couple of the guys we were playing with, I mean, they might as well have been using their putters because they couldn't hit the ball. So we weren't playing on the furthest tees, or else we would have been.
How many mulligans did you have?
6.5 hours. I took one mully. I only take one mully every 18. I'm not allowed to take a mully.
Yeah, take a mulligan, man.
I'll take a damn mully. You don't take any mullies?
Never.
You're full of it.
I don't, bro. The score is the score. If you want to be real about golf, the score.
Listen. You aren't allowed to question me on anything golf until you get me my Pro V1s. Because you still owe me some Pro V1s from our Purdue. I don't want to
give you Pro Vs because you're gonna lose them all in the first round. So I'll give you some top. I'll give you some top flights.
All right. So it was, so we were getting it in. We were getting it in today. But now it's raining. But the money's come raining down in Detroit for one. Jared Goff, just about an hour ago, Adam Schefter tweeted out another done deal in Detroit. Lions are signing quarterback Jared Goff to a 4-year, $212 million contract extension that includes $170 million guaranteed. Goff now goes to become the highest paid Lion in franchise history. Corey, is he worth that money?
Well, it's not, is he worth it? It's just the next quarterback in line, right? Now, granted, my hat off to him, right? Since he's left the Rams, he's done a great job, right? What he's done with Detroit these past 2 years has been unbelievable. Almost led him to the Super Bowl. He's in the perfect system right now. Everything that how they've established this team has been a big reason. He's been a big reason for it. So I at first I was like, whoa, Jared Goff. But you just have to remember, it's the next quarterback in line. And I think what he's been able to do with Detroit is something they can never do with Matthew Stafford. So I understand that they're building the team a little differently. But when you talk about it, Matthew Stafford was never able to do that. So I think it speaks volumes about his leadership, how guys buy into the locker room. And granted, there are guys that are more talented than him, but I think that all plays into it, right? Since he's come to Detroit, he's had a resurgence in his career. The locker room, the guys want to play for him. Very efficient, doesn't turn the ball over much. And when the game was on the line, he showed up. And he was responsible for a bunch of comebacks that they had. They should have won that NFC Championship game if he just took the points. So think about it. He could have led this team to the Super Bowl last year. And Detroit's a franchise that's been in the dumps for years. So that's off Jared Goff. He seems like a great guy, has the locker room. He's playing well. I think it's a good thing for the NFC North because when you look at it, right, there's Jared Goff. Jordan Love obviously had a great season last year. Hopefully he'll have the same season except when we're playing the Bears. And then if J.J. McCarthy really comes into his own, him and Caleb Williams will be the two younger faces in the league in the NFC North, which would be huge. So I think the NFC North, as far as quarterbacks, it's looking like a good thing, especially if Caleb Williams performs the way he's capable of and as advertised. I think that would be huge.
Well, and I think the thing that all of the 4 teams in the NFC North have a lot in similarity is their teams that set their quarterback up to succeed. You know, the reason Jared Goff is successful is because Detroit's got a squad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we'll get into some of the comments about the cap situation here in a second. But to that point, you know, Green Bay, Jordan Love comes in and they have a young roster, but they also had a solid defense, a solid run game, and a system in place that is set up to develop a quarterback in a healthy manner. And they've done that, you know, for decades now. The proof is in the pudding in Green Bay. And then Minnesota, you know, it'll be interesting to see what JJ McCarthy can do, but you know, from a fit standpoint, it seems like it makes sense. Now let's see if JJ McCarthy can actually live up to the expectations of being a top 10 pick. And then obviously Caleb Williams with the Bears here in Chicago, obviously setting himself up as in one of the most unique situations for any first round number 1 pick quarterback to come into, and a really good team that he's walking into. So I think that's some of the things that those teams have in common, but in the NFC North. But to get back to the point of Jared Goff, I think, you know, a few people in the chat hit the nail on the head. Eric Bochanton says the Lions are going to have to make some cap choices after paying St. Brown, Sewell, and now Goff all top dollar. And TR in the chat saying 2024 Lions only shot at Super Bowl with the cap situation. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, it'll be interesting to see how they manage this. They're certainly in a win now mode. So I agree with you, Corey, why you pay them. They don't have a quarterback in waiting. So maybe over the next 2 years, you find that guy and you start to develop him behind Jared Goff. And maybe 3 years from now,
Hayden Hooker, they drafted him.
Hendon Hooker from Tennessee is behind him, but you know, he was a little older, right? I mean, that doesn't mean his career is over by any means, but is he a long-term answer? I don't know. Now with Jared Goff getting a 4-year deal, short of Jared Goff having an injury and Hooker stepping in, you know, I don't know if Detroit will be the place where he, you know, gets that opportunity or not from a timing standpoint. Yeah. But it'll be interesting, you know, as far as their cap situation. I mean, personally, Jared Goff doesn't scare me. I mean, they had every chance to win a Super Bowl, but that's because the team, you know, and the coaching staff they have in Detroit, they're a solid team. So I'm not saying they can't win a Super Bowl, but I'm just saying from a Bears fan standpoint, he doesn't scare me. And I thought the Bears should have beaten Detroit both times they played them last year. They slipped on the banana peel in Detroit, and then they righted that wrong a couple weeks later in Chicago. So, you know, I'm not sitting here looking at this signing as like, oh, no, now what are we going to do? Jared Goff here for 4 more years. And then I guess the next stepping stone from that is, well, if he got that much, Jared Goff, how much is Jordan Love going to get in Green Bay? Because that's who's going to get paid next, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of next in line. And that's what it becomes, because obviously Jordan Love, I think he's a lot more talented than Jared Goff. I mean, he has the arm strength. I mean, he looks like Aaron Rodgers out there. You can tell the mannerisms, you know, the flick of the wrist that he does. He had a great year last year. If I'm going against Jordan Love or Jared Goff, I'm way more scared of going against Jordan Love than I am of Jared Goff. I think the Bears, primarily, the thing with Jared Goff, what he struggles that Jordan Love does well, when he's pressured, Jared Goff really struggles. Jordan Love, what I saw from him in his first year as a starter, he was pretty composed. Anytime, you know, they brought pressure in his face, found their hot route, threw it out of bounds, scrambled. He just seemed very poised, and he was probably in the perfect situation to learn from, arguably, I think, one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, whether Bears fans want to admit it or not. He terrorized it. Obviously, you got to give it to Tom Brady because of the rings. But as far as talent and what he can do and who you'd rather play, like you wouldn't want to play against Aaron Rodgers. Like I always said that when I played, I'd rather play against Tom Brady all day than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers brings a different skill set, and I think it's similar to Jordan Love. So hats off to Jared Goff, but in scheme of things, like he struggled since his Rams days anytime he's pressured. So I think if the Bears can pressure him, you know, you can get that coverage a little bit tighter by the rush a little bit of time. I think you can get after him. But ultimately, you knew they were going to pay him big money when he led the team to the NFC North. And if Dan Campbell goes for those points, we may be looking at Detroit in the Super Bowl at that point. So hats off to him. I mean, he really turned around his career. And I think it was a good squad for both of them, right? Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl. Now Jared Goff, had a career resurgence, and things are looking on the up and up. And Detroit is now a factor after not being a factor for decades. So it's good to see. But then Aiden Hutchinson, right? He has another ball out year. They're going to pay him. He's just going to command because they're going to say, hey, I'm going to pay him now because I'm going to save myself some money. Because if he goes 4 years over there, he's going to continue balling out, and then the price tag keeps going up. So if they were smart, they would re-up him after this year. It's still going to be a pretty penny, but I think you have to lock him in because he's one of the rising defensive ends in this league. And I still don't know if they've addressed the end opposite him. Did they draft anybody this year opposite him? I think they drafted like a defensive back. I don't really remember.
They did draft a bunch of DBs. I know that Gary, my super producer, is going to have to save me and give me Detroit's draft picks on the day. I don't have that off the top of my head, but it is going to be interesting to see how they manage the paydays coming up. But that, like I said, when I say Jared Goff doesn't scare me, at the same time, he is, a very solid quarterback, and the numbers he put up, if Caleb Williams puts up those numbers passing the football this year, I will literally be doing cartwheels down down Lakeshore Drive. We'll be
painting your nails again.
Yeah. Well, the nails, they wore off, so I had to. I scratched them off over the weekend. But yeah, sure, absolutely, I will. Why not? And my toenails.
Yeah. No.
So I'm not. But like I said, so I'm not trying to denigrate Jared Goff. I just, okay, I understand why they signed him, but doesn't really move the needle for me as far as, now the Bears, chances of winning this division, over the next 4 years, aren't as good. No, the Bears are right there with, it's probably the most competitive division in football. So I understand why the Lions did it, but it's just not something that scares me. And hey, let these teams, let Green Bay, let Detroit lock their quarterbacks up for big time money, and the Bears, they have a quarterback that might be equal to in talent. Let's see if he's capable of living up to that expectation. And they've got him on a rookie contract for the next 5 years. So that's the method to the madness that Ryan Poles has executed here in Chicago.
I would say the one thing with Jared Goff where I've seen him improve is when we played them at Detroit, right? I believe he had 3 picks in that game. Should have had 4. The pick 6, or would have been pick 6 that Jalen Johnson dropped. But he played awful in that first half, really first 3 quarters. And towards the end of the game, when they needed 2 big scores, he came up clutch for them, right? Bad coverage and all that. But I think his mindset has changed from when we saw him previously when he played for the Rams. He's a guy that kind of struggled early on, back when Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack and all of them were getting after him back when he played for the Rams. He kind of struggled. Once things went bad, couldn't turn things around. And even not only this Bears game this year, but I saw some games where he had bad performances in the first half, first 3 quarters, bounced back, found a way to get the dub. And I think that's what you're seeing from Jared Goff. I think he's improved in that area, not letting these bad first couple quarters affect him for when the game's online in the fourth quarter. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do the first 3. It matters how you finish the game. And I think that's something he improved on as a player, and I see the growth from him. And back to Caleb Williams, I think a big thing for him this year, what I want to see, is I just want to see him be efficient, right? Do not turn the ball over, right? Learn to play another down, because I think the thing is once a playmaker comes into this league, sometimes they kind of think they can do the same things they did in college. And it's not only the case, right? You got guys like Aiden Hutchinson and company breathing down your neck that are just as fast as you. So I'm just hoping that he takes that approach, like, let's live to play another down. Because I think the thing is, as the playmaker, you want to make all the plays there, right? Take what the defense is giving you. And I think in this scheme, it'll allow that, right? Run the football early on, really establish that run game, make that secondary soft, work the play action. Let's work the quick and intermediate throws, and let's open it up. So that's my only thing with Caleb Williams. He has all the talent in the world. Let's not put too much pressure on the kid early on. Even though he has all the talent, he's arguably the best prospect I think we've ever seen since Andrew Luck. But let's pump the brakes and let's just get him confident early on. That's the only thing that I want to see, because obviously everybody has expectations, but you don't want to call him Tom Brady yet. Let's give him the confidence. Let's work the run game, play action. He has all the tools, but it's a process here. So that's what I just like to remind fans, because everybody gets ahead of them, and you included, right? You get all excited about this and you want to see it.
Yep.
But sometimes it takes time. Who knows? He could go up there and light it up, and that would be position A. That would be ideal. But there's a chance, right? There could be some growing pains. Look at Jordan Love last year, right? Started out hot, then fizzled a little bit, then towards the end of the season played as hot as can be because they figured things out. And that's the mark of a good coach. So I'm hoping Shane Waldron and company just look at it and say, okay, how can we make this kid successful? How can we make him look good? How can we make him comfortable? And I think that's the recipe for any young quarterback. He obviously has all the tools. He has the weapons, right? I think this is the most stacked the Bears offense has been probably ever in the history of the Bears franchise. I think we can agree with that statement. So let's just slowly build him up. And I think if they can do that, I think he'll really have a great season.
Yeah, no question. When you talk about, the team that he's walking into, Scott Kashmar, hopefully I'm not butchering his name here.
Oh, you butchered it, bro.
I probably did. Kazmar. Let's just say Kazmar for fun. It's easier. Out of Pittsburgh. He says Caleb is the 28th quarterback drafted number one overall since 1966. Out of those quarterbacks, he's coming into the best wide receiver trio that any of those number one draft pick quarterbacks were. Top 8 tight end in Cole Kmet, and a team with a better defense that had a better record than 85% of those 28 quarterbacks. It's arguably, if not, maybe there is no argument, the best situation for a number one pick rookie quarterback to ever walk into, to your point.
100%. And I think that's what Ryan Poles and company said. We got it wrong with Mitch. We didn't do it right with Justin, because I think Fields had the talent, right? And things went a certain way. There's things he needed to improve on. But he's like, you know what? With Caleb Williams, I'm going to surround him with the talent, because we know with number 9, he could have went offensive line. He could have went defensive line, something that we're in need of. But I respect it, because ultimately this is your franchise quarterback, and it's something you haven't been able to capitalize on. So what are we going to do? We're going to surround him with talent, that wide receiver trio, the tight end duo, the running back core that they have, the offensive line, the revamped offensive line, Shane Waldron's system that is very QB friendly. And I think that's, some people are on the fence about Shane Waldron. I don't know if I believe in him. I don't know. But the thing is, you have to realize that before Russell Wilson left to go to Denver, he had one of his best seasons in the NFL, right? Russell Wilson wanted him to come to Seattle from Sean McVay's staff. He said, I need him here, right? Russell Wilson had a great season. Then when Russell Wilson leaves, Geno Smith has his 4,000-yard season. And then last year, people say, oh, well, his numbers weren't the same, but he missed 2 games. He still would have threw for over 4,000. And this is a guy that people were ready to be done with in the league. He's going to be a career number 3 quarterback, and he's shown that he could be a productive quarterback and win games. So think about Caleb Williams. His ceiling is way higher than Geno Smith's. So imagine what he could do in this system. And what I love the most about it is when you're talking about a QB-friendly system, there's a lot of 2 tight end sets. And what does that do? That forces wide nines. So basically, they're getting off the ball. Sometimes the tight ends chip and then go out, or other times it's a farther path for those talented defensive ends to get to the quarterback. Yep. So I like that off the bat. And there's a
especially with the way Caleb climbs the pocket. He really does a good job of fighting to stay in the pocket, and his ability to climb the pocket, shift left, shift right, drop his shoulder. Like, those are the things when you watched him play over the last couple of years, he's got a real feel in there. And so when you talk about that wide 9, that's going to open up those lanes to step up and move around and make the throw a little easier.
Exactly, because a lot of defensive ends, once they're getting going, they think they could just sometimes run up the field. But the thing is, you always have to counter back at the level. So it kind of gives you this false sense of, like, if you just hit your edge and you go to the quarterback, you'll make it. But usually from a wide 9, unless you just beat that tackle out of his stance, very rarely is that happening. So I'm looking forward to it, because I think all all the signs are pointing for a productive, successful season for Caleb. And I think ultimately that's just what Bears fans want to see. We've never had a quarterback that we felt great about, that we're like, this is for sure the guy. And all the signs are pointing to that. Obviously, we haven't played any games, so I know most people are like, hey, pump the brakes. We haven't. But the thing is, like, everything is setting up for a successful season. So the bar has been pretty low. I think we've said that before. So if he could just come out and have a very solid season, right? Connect with the wide receivers, be efficient, rely on the run game. That's already improvement. And then as he gets more confident, we open up the playbook and really showcase what he can do. But I'm just hoping they don't do that too early on, just because nowadays you're meeting with the team less, right? You're doing less off-season activities. You're doing less preseason. So it kind of sucks for a lot of these rookies. Like when back in the day, you would have double sessions every day. It would kind of grind you, but you would get that continuity with your receiving core, with your whole offense, your whole defense. So we're not getting as much of that. So that's where it kind of hurts you a little bit. So hopefully this offseason he'll continue to get with the wide receiving core, tight ends, be on the same page, running backs as well. Just so, because the reps are limited. That's the only thing that sucks.
Right.
It's not like, he's a guy that's been here for 5 or 6 years with the same guys. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's learning all this new playbook. He's learning how to play with these guys. But I'm just hoping they work together. They work the reps in the preseason. Doesn't have to be every game, but I want them to work some live reps because it's a lot different in practice than it is during the live reps.
Yeah, 100%. And it'll be interesting to see, we talked about this last week, just how they approach training camp and preseason and try to get as many reps as they can, within the extra game now that they play in the Hall of Fame game. So rookie minicamp here was over the weekend. And I certainly want to get into some of the comments made by the players and the limited stuff that we saw. Obviously, if you followed Adam Hogue, Mark Harmon, and Nick Moriano's coverage from camp, we had a couple recap shows where they really talked a lot about what they saw out there. So if you haven't checked those out, make sure you do. But I want to ask you about your experience first when you first came into rookie minicamp and what that was like for you, that transition from the college level to going to rookie minicamp where you're not facing the entire team yet. You're going up against other rookies, but you're getting ingratiated into the team and the coaching staff and the system.
Well, when you go to rookie minicamp, right, there's only a handful of guys that are really going to be there after that weekend. There's a lot of invite guys. So everybody and their mother is going hard in the paint like you wouldn't believe. And you're just in helmets. So it's kind of hard. You have some of these guys that are trying to prove a point and do something. So sometimes you got to go full tilt or else somebody's out there trying to hurt you. So that's what you see a lot of guys going really, especially with offensive and defensive linemen. You can't really work stuff for real. You could just work your hands a little bit with pass rush. What I see a lot of times is guys trying to do bull rushes, and you see it online all the time, like these high school rivals and top players. They'll be bull rushing people with no helmet, no pads on. The thing is, during this time, especially as a defensive lineman, you want to work your hands, especially in the run game. Just keep your distance, keep your leverage, and in the pass game, work on your hands. So this is more about you getting ingrained in the scheme, working your get off, working in different fundamentals as far as, hey, if you have movement, we're not taking any wasted steps. We're working on that get off and continuously. So this is a time where you get together, you learn everything, and you're chomping at the bit because you want to get to training camp because obviously, this is pretty much just in your underwear, right? You're just going out there, kind of going through the motions. Usually the skill positions that really can get a feel of things because they're going, pretty much full tilt. They're not being physical, but the route running, the coverage, that's all there. It's kind of hard to take, offensive, defensive linemen, what they're doing in the 11-on-11 period. So, I always had fun during it, but you're kind of looking forward to when you could actually put the pads on, especially as a lineman, because that's not really going through everything in that period of time.
Yeah, for sure. And, you heard some of that here, your guy, Eric Washington, talking about, working with these guys over the weekend and now he's starting to sink his teeth into this team and make his footprint back, within the organization. So it'll be exciting to see, where that goes, especially once we get to OTAs. And like you said, then the full squad's out there, it's less of the invite guys, and then it'll be certainly something that'll be fun to follow as the summer rolls along. We have a bunch of people here in the chat, so make sure you're hitting the like button while you're hanging out. We appreciate you guys hanging with us. We're going to take a quick little break here. Crystal's in the chat saying, Braggs, I just came to say we're beefing. I don't know
what you do?
I don't know. I don't know what we did. I don't know what I did. And quite frankly, I don't care, Crystal. Okay? Yeah, no. Yeah, we're beefing. Go cry to Carm about it. I don't, Carm's your guy. I'm not your guy. Carm's your guy. So if we're beefing, I don't care. Tell it to the judge. So anyway, moving on. We have a few new sponsors here to Bears After Dark. And one, of course, is our guys over at Illinois Pork Producers. And we appreciate them jumping on board here with CHGO Bears After Dark. It's grilling season, so get your pork. People are active, need more protein, like myself, than the average American. In fact, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietitians of Canada and the American College of Sports Medicine recommend 1.2 or 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day for athletes, depending on training. So, for instance, a 150-pound person, that's about 81 to 136 grams of protein per day. 1 3-ounce serving of pork provides 23 grams of high-quality protein that can help active individuals build and preserve muscles. So the International Society of Sports Nutrition recommends that people who are involved in a general fitness program or who are interested in optimizing their health eat low-fat, high-quality sources of protein, which include lean cuts of pork, and that is what the Illinois Pork Producers serve to give you. Elevate your protein game with lean pork, a powerhouse of natural goodness. Savor the flavor, savor the gains, and celebrate any occasion by enjoying the best pork produced by Illinois pig farmers. From your sausage and bacon for breakfast to pulled pork or juicy chops hot off the grill, it's an entire season dedicated to pork and the people behind the product, paid for by the Illinois Pork Producers. Generations of commitment. And then one of our secondary sponsors here at CHGO Bears After Dark is Lucy. Make sure you head over to lucy.co/CHGO Bears for 20% off. Made for your nicotine routine and delivered straight to your door. 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free. Choose your form from pouches, breakers, or gum. Choose your strength from 2 milligrams all the way to 12 milligrams. Choose your flavor: mint, apple, ice, espresso, mango, and much more. Save yourself the weekly gas station stop and sign up for a monthly subscription. Save 15% off. No commitment. Cancel any time. So let's level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/CHGO and use the promo code CHGO to get 20% off your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. That's lucy.co and use the code CHGO to get 20% off and always free shipping. And then one more thing. Is this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical, so make sure that you understand that when you're purchasing your products, but make sure you're hitting up Lucy if you need it. Okay, now that we got the business out of the way for the day, I guess the other part of, the rookie minicamp was, these players speaking to the press for the first time in a Bears uniform, putting on that Bears helmet. And Caleb Williams certainly is, well-trained when it comes to speaking in front of reporters. He's been in the spotlight for a long time now, dating back to high school, and it seems like he knows the right things to say. Time will tell if, he's talking the talk. Is he going to walk the walk? And, I guess one of the big quotes that came out that really impressed a lot of people, including myself, was, he said, to be a great leader, you have to learn how to follow first. So he's not coming out here, trying to flex on everybody that he's the number one pick and he's the franchise, even though that's obvious who he is to this franchise. He's saying, no, he's going to follow first before he leads, and I guess that's what I want to ask you, Corey, is, from what you heard from, Caleb over the weekend, the way he's carried himself so far, that quote in particular, how impressed have you been so far by him, and how long do you think the process is? Because like when you were a rookie, and you can walk us through this, how long did it take you from the rookie that's keeping your head down and going to work to the guy that, started to assert himself in the locker room as somebody that really wanted to step up? I mean, you've told this story a few times about how, it took, Rod Marinelli really to light a fire under your ass to get you going and make you into the career that you ended up having here in Chicago, but with a quarterback, he's the leader in the huddle on offense, so he doesn't really have the luxury of time to develop to a certain degree where he can say, okay, now I'm ready to be the leader. Am I saying that right? Or can he take a step back and let somebody else be the leader in that huddle, in the locker room all year, even though he's QB1 of the franchise?
I think somebody else could definitely step up and be that leader, a veteran guy. Maybe it's DJ Moore or one of those. But I think there is a certain leadership that he needs to step up and take command, right? I think when the game's on the line, things of that nature, especially when you have, when the game's on the line, right? You're in the huddle there. Everyone's looking at the quarterback, right? Okay, well, what is he going to do? How is he going to lead us? And I think he does have to step up early on, right, and be that guy and showcase that, right? It's not like right now he's not going to be the day one leader of the offense, but I think with time and they see how he works and they see how he continues to get better, I think then they gain his respect, because most of these guys that are in the pros are like, okay, let's see, right? Because they've been like everybody else, right? You've heard things about him. Oh, okay, he's a little cocky. He's this. I wonder how he is in the locker room. So it's kind of like he has to show how he works. Is he the first guy there? How is he with the extra film study? Is he throwing with extra guys? He does all those things. He's going to gain the respect of the locker room easily. And then they're like, okay, he's our leader. So I think a good sign would be if he could be a captain in year one. That would really show that it's not the end all be all, but I think that would really show he has command of that locker room. They view him as a leader. And I think if he continues to do the right things, how we've seen him in the media, how he works, I think all that will come together. And I think that would be a great sign for this team if we see he's, a captain for this season. I think that would be huge.
Yeah, I mean, well, and you've got the veterans, like you said. I mean, you've got Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. I think really will Cole Kmet. I think those guys will really spearhead that to start. It will be interesting to see who's going to be the leader in that offensive line room. I mean, I guess it's Tevin Jenkins,
Yeah, that's what I would probably say.
Tevin's been there a while, and when they had this leadership committee meet with Caleb Williams, for dinner when he came for his 30 visit, Tevin was one of the players that was asked to meet with Caleb. So I found that interesting. Tevin hasn't been able to stay on the field through injury a few times, but when he's out there, he certainly asserts himself, as that driving force that you're looking for in a leader on the offensive line. So I'm rooting for him. And man, he really has taken an evolution from a couple years ago where clearly was not happy with the coaching staff, and specifically when Ryan Poles got here saying, hey, you're going to be a guard. This is what we want for you. And that's not what he wanted for himself at the time. And now he's had quotes recently where he's like, I'll play anywhere on the line. I just want to do right by the team. And man, he's come a long way in that regard. Yeah. So, I really hope and root for Tevin to have as healthy a season as he possibly can have. I mean, everybody gets injured, to a degree. So there is some allowance there, but if he can make it through the season relatively healthy to a point where they have enough confidence to give him a contract extension, I'll be certainly happy for that and rooting for that, because you need some attitude on that offensive line. And I think he and Darnell Wright do provide that.
I think that would be huge if he has a healthy year because he's such an impact when he's out there. Not only that, he elevated Braxton Jones's game. He elevated our Darnell Wright's game. I think it's when you have a veteran guard, a guy that's nasty, a guy that's smart, that's quick, can do it all. He elevates everybody's game. And there was definitely a difference when he was out there and he wasn't, especially with a guy like Darnell Wright. I mean, it was night and day difference. It's always good to have that guy that can help out with the calls and the protections. And, if you get beat by an inside move, he's there to help you out. So I'm hoping he has a healthy year this year because it would be huge for the future of the Bears franchise to really have a lot of younger guys that are locked up for some years to come, especially with a young quarterback that's going to be your franchise guy. It's just Tevin Jenkins is old school, right? Him and Darnell Wright are those old school type players. They're nasty, and you don't see as much of that anymore in the league. So it's refreshing to see some of those guys like that because those are the guys you want on your team. When they hit a quarterback late, they're going to go over there and clean up that guy and let them know that shit ain't happening.
All right. And Cliff Victoria here in the chat saying Keenan could end up being a leader on offense. He's a pro's pro. I completely agree. My only hope is that he sees just how special, what's going on here in Chicago is enough for him to want to sign a contract extension. Now, he left, the Chargers were willing to trade him because he didn't want to take a pay cut with the Chargers. He was getting paid good money by them. They asked him to take a pay cut. He said, nope. And so that ended up being the reason why he gets traded to Chicago. So obviously, he still thinks he deserves a certain amount of money. I mean, last year was actually his best year of his career, even at his age. But what I'm hoping is, okay, he had, bad taste in his mouth because an organization that he's done right by for over a decade didn't want to pay him what he deserved. But here in Chicago, it's different. So, he comes into a young team. They have certain, money that they have to, give to other players and certain considerations they have to take. And maybe his mindset changes, that being Keenan Allen, to a point where he's like, hey, I want to stay here. I want to finish my career here. I want to try to win a Super Bowl here. And so I'm going to, I'm not saying hometown discount, that's not what I'm trying to say, but at least something that's manageable for the Bears over the next 2 or 3 years. I'm really hoping that they can find a way to have a contract extension so he can be a leader, not just for this year, but for the next few years in this pivotal time for this offense to develop and what we hope it can be over the next few years.
That would be huge as one of the top slot receivers in the league, which would be huge to complement DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Caleb Williams, the whole offense. And it'll be nice because I think ultimately he's made a bunch of money. He's made 2 big contracts. Obviously, he's got to make money for this next contract if he balls out this year. But I'm hoping it could be a friendly deal for the Bears where it's like a 1-year very heavy payment, right, guaranteed, or 2-year heavy guaranteed with the third option to have an out. So I think that would be great to have those 3 guys for the next 2 to 3 years locked up, and you have them, you have these weapons. So I think he's going to be ready to go, and ultimately he's never won a Super Bowl. So I think that's at the top of his list. Before I finish the league, right, I've surmounted myself as one of the better receivers in the league. I think he'll probably make the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. I think he's 100%, had that good of a career 100%. To do that, right? Sometimes it's politics in here of when he gets in, but I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think the next thing is for him to win a Super Bowl. And if this year they have a great year and they're on the same connection, offense is ball and defense, you might say, you know what? I can go somewhere else and make a little bit more money, but what's important at this point? And that's what you see every great player towards the tail end of his career. They're usually like, okay, where can I be in a situation where I can win a Super Bowl? Because there's nothing like that feeling. Guys I've talked to that won a Super Bowl, it's like, man, that is the best feeling in the world, right? It's the pinnacle of the NFL to win a Super Bowl with your team. I was 1 game away my rookie year from being in the Super Bowl. Man, that hurt. Losing to Green Bay in that game. But, we thought, hey, if we beat the Packers, it was a pretty good matchup against Pittsburgh. So, you don't want to wish that. You want to leave everything on the field, and hopefully eventually the Bears in the next couple of years can compete for a Super Bowl. I think they have the talent. I think they're starting to build the roster the way they want to. It'll be interesting to see. I think this is a huge year as kind of like the changing of the guard and to see the direction of where this new Bears franchise is going.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys beat Pittsburgh earlier that season, right? I mean, so you know, and that would have set up beautifully for you guys had that, but then Jay, tore his MCL and he tried to play on it. And Maurice Jones-Drew was talking that shit. I mean, what was your reaction when the game finished to a guy like Maurice Jones-Drew who's not in the locker room calling out your quarterback who did try to play on a torn MCL?
The thing is, right, you never know anybody's pain tolerance because people argue and say, well, Phillip Rivers, he tore his ACL and they told him to shut down in the playoff game. And he said, no, I'm going to brace it up. And this is the guy after the doctors told him, hey, you could really hurt your knee after this. You could do cartilage damage. Brace it up. So I think that was the argument that a lot of people were saying, like, this MCL, like, people play with that all the time. Why couldn't you do it? But at the same time, you don't know how he was planting off that leg. I didn't watch him on the sidelines, right? I'm focused on the game. But maybe he was more of a harm to the team at that point. So I think he ultimately made the decision. So you can never say somebody's this or somebody's that because you're not in their shoes. You don't know what their pain tolerance is. You don't know how they were feeling at that point. Could they really plan off that leg? I don't know. So I'm not going to judge anybody. I just know a lot of people were saying he should have played. Phillip Rivers played with a torn ACL. But you never know what anyone's feeling about at that point.
Yeah. Well, I was at both games. I was at the game where you guys beat Seattle when the snow started coming down. Greg Olsen up the seam for the touchdown. Kellen Davis had a touchdown in the corner of the end zone at the end of that game. That was the last Bears playoff win in 2011. So we're 13 years since the last time the Bears won a playoff game. And then in the NFC Championship, I was at that game as well with my buddy Jason. And Bears fans, I could go all day about how stupid they were acting after that game. I had a lot of hope, after that game. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just trying to rationalize for myself. But like after that loss in the NFC Championship, after the loss to the Eagles in 2018, I was at both games. And, I just was like looking at it like, hey, this was a nice run. This team has a chance to, build off of this. But in the NFL, things change quickly, right? And salary cap and injuries and coaching changes, player changes. There's just a lot of different movement. And, you can have all the plans in the world, like the Bengals, I'm sure they'll eventually get another shot at it. I mean, the Bengals lose to the Rams. They come so close to winning a Super Bowl. And I think most Bengals fans would have told you, hey, we'll be back. And now they're having trouble getting back. The Bills, they're having trouble getting there, and so once you have your opportunity, you got to take it, especially in the NFL. It's not easy to get to the mountaintop.
Yeah, small window where you have a team that legitimately could make a Super Bowl run. And sometimes teams come up short, right? Buffalo has had a squad for years, and they haven't been able to capitalize and beat Patrick Mahomes and company. So the window is starting to close, right? We've seen, them not being as successful in the playoffs, the Bengals as well. I think it just comes down to the thing is, obviously we're hoping the Bears can do a playoff run this year. Is Super Bowl realistic? You never know how they go along during the season. But I would hope that in the next 3 years that they are really competing for a Super Bowl, right? By year 2, year 3, like they're in the running, they're making a long playoff run. And if things go their way, they can make a Super Bowl because I think they're starting to build the roster differently than any other team in this Bears franchise. I think this is probably the more balanced team that we've seen. Obviously, there's one or two positions on the defensive line that I think they could improve on. And
sure.
Who knows what Booker may do if Gervon Dexter takes the next step. Then all of a sudden we're looking like a different team. But I think there are two dominant players on defense away from being like a Super Bowl caliber defense.
And that's why I think a lot of people say, well, this year isn't their Super Bowl year. And next year, they get a first round pick, 2 second round picks. You get another crack at free agency. You might be able to dial in on a specific player, and go a little, push your chips in a little more and risk a little more on free agency going after a big ticket item. Like when you guys got Julius Peppers. That certainly almost put you guys over the top. And maybe that's the kind of move the Bears make next year. And this year, they're just going to have to get, whoever they can to hold them over. If they do, as I anticipate them add a guy or two to that defensive line. It'll certainly be interesting to see Austin Booker's development, but he's still a rookie. So there is, like you said, to start the show, yes, my expectations are going to constantly flare up. I'm the meatball on the show, and I wear my emotions on my sleeve for this team. And when I go to camp, I'm going to get too excited. And when the schedule release comes out on Wednesday, we're going to do a schedule release show. I'm sure just like last year, I'm going to meatball it up and pick the Bears to win 13 games. And that's just how it goes. But at the same time, having an expectation for this team to get better than they did last year, but having separate expectations for this rookie class, specifically Caleb Williams, and understanding that they're rookies and there's a developmental curve that they have to go through. And speaking of rookies, tease this here on the show. Adam Hogue gave me the go ahead. We had an exclusive interview here just a couple hours ago with Tory Taylor, the punter from down under, coming out of Australia. Iowa. Yeah, exactly. The boys went and talked to him a few hours ago. We recorded it. Steven's producing it, and that should be on the show here tomorrow for CHGO Bears at noon, 12 p.m. Central. So make sure you tune in for that. And like I said, the schedule release show coming up on Wednesday. A lot of fun things happening here this week for CHGO Bears, efforting a couple special guests along the way as well. So I think that about wraps things up here today. We did have a $1.99 super chat from my guy Jason. He said, Braggs, how do you feel about birds? Corey, I don't know if you caught this on the timeline. Me and my wife have been in a 3-week battle with the birds in our backyard. We have an awning that goes over our back door, and they've been trying to build a nest up there, and I just have been fucking losing my mind over these birds. We put spike strips up there. We put towels, stuffed it. They pulled the towels out and used it as insulation for their nest. Now we bought 2 owls, fake owls, not real owls. And they're just sitting there. And I guess that only works for so long. Then the birds learn that the owl isn't real. I'm not going to buy a BB gun, but they're shitting all over the back deck. So it's been a battle. My wife's been going through it worse than I have. I've just been kind of laughing at her while she loses it, but I finally took matters into my own hands this weekend. So we'll see. So no, me and the birds aren't getting along. I have, Corey, you may not know this, but I have 8 bird houses. They have all these nice bird houses. I
saw you post a video about it.
I've got 8 bird houses. I just put a new one on the front tree. I give them all these different houses, and then what do they do to repay us? They shit all over our house. So, yes, I have an issue with the birds. Dr. True saying, great to see Braggs. I'm pulling for you in the cage match of Braggs versus Bird. Well, I appreciate that. Crystal had to leave earlier, but she's still threatening me. No one's scared. Final question from Orange Cassidy. Who was the last player to sack Brett Favre?
I think the turf in Minnesota.
Oh, well, so I'm not abusing birds, and Woot wasn't abusing Brett Favre once upon a time. But we are having some fun talking some Bears football here on CHGO Bears After Dark. We're going to wrap things up because I am going to be producing the CHGO Cubs post-game show here in a little bit. So going to take a little break, start prepping for that, getting all the graphics going and everything going for that. So make sure you stay to this channel all night long. The Cubs are in a battle with the Atlanta Braves right now in the bottom of the 4th. It's still 0-0. Shota Imanaga is on the bump, the best pitcher in baseball right now. So it's a lot of fun watching him, but he's trying to get out of a 1st and 3rd jam with 2 outs. So that's what we're doing here. So Corey, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, my final thoughts are this season in general. I think there's one goal in mind that I'm thinking of. I don't know how you're thinking about this, but this year is about getting Caleb confident. I think for me, that's the biggest thing I want to see is throughout the year that he feels confident in the scheme. They put him in great situations. They take the pressure off him at times when they need to, and they get him confident. That's what I want to see this year is when we finish the year, we know one thing for sure, right? We may have to add a position on defense or two, but we know that the offense and Caleb Williams, that we do have our quarterback of the future. We feel great about it, and that they did everything to keep him confident throughout the year, because confidence is the key for any player developing. Everybody's talented, right? And I think the thing is getting his confidence up to take him where he needs to be. So that's my one thing this year, what it's about. And obviously, if they can do that, they'll make the playoffs for sure. Like they almost made the playoffs last year with a team that struggled up and down. So getting Caleb confident, putting him in the right position to succeed this year, that's what I'm looking forward to the most. And if they can continue to develop him and all of a sudden they're making a run, now let's do it. Let's ride the wave.
Thing I'm looking forward to the most is having you in our studios for these post-game shows. Because, last year watching Bears games with Mark Carman and Adam Hogue is a weird thing. Like we watched a few games a couple years ago when you were in studio for post-game shows. And I need that kind of energy when I watch a Bears game. Like I am emotionally invested in the game. Yeah. Like Carm and Hogue, they watch it from a different lens. And I watch it from a very, like tribalistic caveman, scream at the TV, wear my heart on my sleeves. And you do too, honestly. I've watched these games with you. You get out of your seat, you get fired up. You can see that competitive, emotion still flowing within you from the days of you hitting the gridiron. So I'm excited for you to balance the power out at the CHGO studios, and we'll bring in another. I'm not going to say you're a meatball, but you do get meatballed up, for Bears games. You do get into it, and I need that because Carmen Hogue, like things will be going wrong, and I'm losing my mind, and they think it's funny. Like they're laughing, they'll crack jokes. Like there's not like when the Bears aren't playing well, nothing is funny at that time. So like I need some Woot in my life at the studios, bringing the intensity. And I have a feeling me and you are gonna, because like it got to a point last year, Woot, where I had to like sit on the other side of the studio from them because I'm like, get away from me. I cannot watch games with you guys. Like they're too cynical about it. I need a little more rage and emotion in my life.
Yep. No, I'm excited for it. It'll be a fun year. And hopefully the Bears will continue to look good and go on a streak here. But yeah, I think Orange Cassidy, I'm a meatball and I'm proud of it.
Oh yeah. Meatball Island, baby. We're all on Meatball Island here. So you better get on board, Woot.
So when you make your meatballs, how do you make them?
Why are you putting me on blast? I don't make the meatballs. Jenny makes the meatballs in my house.
I need to know. I'm from North Jersey. I got to know how you make them. You know what I'm saying? Get this guy out of here, man. Yeah. Yo, put you in the Hudson River there, Braggs. You'll know the real meatball. You never had a real meatball until you've been to the East Coast. Right there, tough guy. I'll tell you what, this guy's getting driven out by birds. That would never happen in my area. You know what I'm saying? It would never happen. Forget about it.
Okay. All right. Well, Shota Imanaga gets out of bases loaded jam as Seiya Suzuki comes down with the catch. So that ends the fourth inning for the Cubs. They're heading to the fifth. We're heading out of here on CHGO Bears After Dark. Please hit that like button on your way out. We appreciate everybody hanging out. As always, we appreciate you, Corey Wootton, for bringing the knowledge and the insights. As always, we'll see you next Monday, for another CHGO Bears After Dark. And for all of you fans, we'll see you tomorrow afternoon, 12 p.m. Central. Once again, Tory Taylor exclusive interview that we just recorded a couple hours ago. That'll be live on the show tomorrow at noon with myself, Mark Carman, Stephen Nicholas running the ones and twos. And make sure you're following along with all of us at CHGO_Bears. Until then, have a great night. Enjoy some playoff basketball, some Cubs baseball, and always bear down.
We all silly like the mayor.